Welcome and thank you for standing by. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants are in a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion of the call. At that time, you may press star 1 on your phone to ask the question. I will now turn the call over to your host, Erin St. Peter. You may begin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this year's TLR webinar. My name is Erin St. Peter. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the FY22 TLR, known as the Transaction Level Report at the CDFI Fund. As our operator Jordan noted, please note that the webinar is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to access this once it gets posted to our website. And my name is Erin St. Peter. I'm a research analyst at our Financial Strategies and Research team here at the CDFI Fund. I'm also joined by my colleague Yang Do, who's a TLR superstar, another research analyst at the fund, as well as we have Mia Lane on the call, who is at our Office of Compliance Monitoring and Evaluation. She's going to be able to help us with some compliance-related questions today. We also have Scott Zellin on our IT side, who's here to support us regarding any questions of a more technical nature around things like TLR submission, error troubleshooting, and other related technical topics. It's also important to note that today we're going to be talking on TLR reporting requirements for our Rapid Response Program, known as RRP, and our FAA Financial Assistance and NACA awards, and as well as the supplementals under the FAA program. So if you're here for any other program like Market Tax Credit or ERP reporting requirements, this is not the webinar for you. So we're going to focus just on CDFI, NACA, RRP, FAA Award, TLR today. The agenda today, we're going to keep it a little light on info from us to provide enough opportunity for CDFIs to pose any questions you have. But in general, we're going to go over just a high-level overview of what the TLR is, what the CLR is, how it's structured. We're going to talk a little bit about how to submit your TLR in AMIS. We're not going to do a full demo, but we're going to kind of talk about the high-level components. We're going to go through some FAQs that we've received this year, as well as reminders, and then we're going to open up to question and answer. So again, you're going to be posing questions over the phone with help from our operator. Please don't put any questions into the chat today. All right, so if you are a seasoned TLR user, I'm going to just pause for a moment. It looks like someone's put in the chat that they can't hear audio. So you might need to maybe try calling in again and work with our operator. Let's see. Jordan, can you confirm that the audio is working on your end?
I can confirm.
Okay. We've got a couple comments coming in about some issues with audio. I'm going to keep going because this is kind of our only option for presenting at this time, but looks like some of you are having success. Some of you are working on trying through computer or phone, so feel free to try what works best for you, and if you're having trouble early on, don't worry, these will be posted. If you miss anything, you can always submit a service request, and we're going to make sure you get the answers that you need. So feel free to try some other options if you're tuning in and having difficulties, but hopefully we're going to get this out in a couple different mediums, so you'll have like the written format going. And again, if there's something that you're missing, just let us know and we'll figure out how to get you the info that you need. This will be posted as soon as possible on our website as well. So to start with, we're just going to go over, again, high level, where do you find information about the TLR to get yourself oriented if you're new to this process. So basically, we tend to hold a webinar like this in June in advance of the June 30 TLR deadline. Most of our CDFIs have this date as their TLR deadline. And so if you're just starting out, the best place to start is on our website, where we're going to have a variety of documents posted that discuss our data point guidance, instructional videos, step-by-step submissions and, all the resources that are made public are all going to be hosted there on that site. So basically to get to where the TLR information is shared, you're going to start at www.cdfifund.gov. And the TLR information isn't housed where a lot of our program information is housed. It's housed from our homepage directly, and we're going to show you how to get there. But there's going to be a button on our website that says Compliance and Performance Reporting Resources. You can also go directly to the page to find these resources by clicking cdfifund.gov/AMIS-reporting. So if I were to just leave this presentation momentarily, I'm going to go to our homepage. Many of you are used to sort of starting on these program pages for your applications, for the NOFA, things like that. But we're not going to go in on a program page. We're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the web page. And then you're going to see this Compliance and Performance Reporting Resources page. If you click here, there's, some information that is specific to the TLR for our New Markets Tax Credit Program. If you're not trying to work on your New Markets Tax Credit TLR, you can skip that section and go all the way down here where you see TLR guidance, documents, and information. This is the information that's specific to your FA and RRP award reporting requirements. There's different types of media posted here. Again, if you need to access something differently that you can't access here, please shoot us a note and we'll try to get you the information you need. Right now, these are a series of webinars and then FAQ documents. Some of the information is kind of posted in many different formats, so you can find it in a webinar, but you could also find it in the data point guidance. So there are technical webinars here about how to actually click through AMIS and complete the reports. These are of a highly technical nature, so if you get stuck clicking through the system, you could resort to these webinars. There's also this really helpful TLR data point guidance document. So I just wanted to show everybody that this document is an excellent place to start if you're just starting out. Basically, the first 1/3 of it is focused on just instructions, written content of the stuff that's discussed over the webinars, but it's showing the different ways you can enter your TLR information, be it through a manual entry or an upload process. It goes through, where you click, where the error messages show up, what the templates look like. It's kind of a step-by-step guide. Shows you where you're going to upload the documents, what error messages are going to look like, how you can correct errors if you encounter any, things like that. So that whole 1/3 of this data point guidance document is really helpful just to give it a quick read and get an idea of the different steps involved. This document then transitions to kind of show some really detailed information on what the different data points are asking for. So if you're trying to enter information about a transaction and you don't quite know which label to use or which category to use in sort of answering a particular variable, you can come to this data point guidance, sort of Control F to the keyword you're trying to find, and you'll see really detailed information that's explaining, okay, this is what this field is looking for, these are the possible values, which should help you kind of try to figure out how to categorize the transaction. If at any point you get stuck, you can't figure it out, you're not sure, just go ahead and you can shoot us a service request, and either Yang and I will answer that, or we'll route it to a different team depending on what the question looks like. But this data point guidance is a really, really good landing page if you are getting stuck, if you're running into issues that the help text doesn't fully answer. So that's kind of your resource page here. That is where all of the main information about the TLR is contained. We also have an FAQ PDF that we put out that provides a lot of the same questions we might get on this webinar, things we're seeing that come in as a pattern, and then the official answers to these questions, but everyone's on the same page about different things that are coming up. So the FAQ document, the TLR data point guidance, are really, really useful resources as you're working on your report. And then those webinars are also available for going through the technical process of where do you click, how do you click, and how do I troubleshoot errors and certify. All right. So that's just kind of our overall landing page for these different resources. I also wanted in this webinar to kind of give a high-level overview of what is the TLR, what are these acronyms, how do I know whether I have to submit the CLR or the TLR or both, and just go through that quickly at a high level. So, so basically, when you're thinking about which transactions does the TLR ask for, the answer is that we're looking for all new transactions that are originated during your required reporting period, not just those that are directly funded by program dollars, CDFI fund dollars. So we're really looking for all new transactions. There's nuances about how you might deal with participation loans and things like that that are explained in the guidance, but just keep in mind that it is all new transactions. And so sometimes, unfortunately, folks only submit, those ones that they may be directly funded with FA program dollars or something like that, and then we have to go back and solicit the full suite of transactions. So please send us all new transactions for your TLR report. We use those for various reporting at the fund, so those are really helpful. I also wanted to touch on the date range for your TLR reports. So RRP and FA awardees should be reporting on transactions from their most recently completed fiscal year. Now, if you're an RRP awardee, last year you may have had a partial year reporting period, which did cause some confusion. And so just please note that this year, sort of back to normal, your reporting period is going to be that full fiscal year. So we're not talking about a partial year reporting period for this FY22 TLR report. And then there's high-level questions that are just important to understand. Again, if you're new, the TLR report has a number of different parts. And, we have a TLR and we have something called a CLR. And so it's important to understand which ones you need to submit. It can be really confusing when you're starting out the first time. So if you're a regulated CDFI, like a bank or a credit union, we actually have you submit your consumer transactions separately via a report called the CLR. And then we have your non-consumer transactions be submitted via the TLR. And those reports are kind of different at a high-level conceptual nature. So the CLR for those consumer transactions, again, if you're a regulated entity, those end up being aggregated up to the census tract level before submission. So they have fewer data fields required, and you're not reporting the individual loan level transactions, you're actually reporting them aggregated up to the census tract level, whereas the TLR ends up being submitted at the transaction level. If you're an unregulated CDFI, like a loan fund, we actually have you submit your consumer and your non-consumer transactions in the same report, and those get both submitted via the TLR. So when you see in the documentation TLR, CLR, so it's important to understand where you fall in terms of what you should be submitting. There's also, sometimes folks find it confusing that there's all these address steps, and they're trying to figure out what does this mean when they're just starting out. So our guidance will kind of go through the different templates that you see, where you start, how the data is submitted differently, but I thought I might just touch on these address templates so that you can strategically plan a little bit from a high level. This is just a screenshot of some of the reports that you see in AMIS when you're trying to start your TLR. These are the templates that you download to start with. And there's these two address ones that I highlighted on the right. So the one at the top, the title isn't necessarily super clear, but it says New CDFI TLR Address August 2020.csv. That's the template that you kind of use to submit your completed address file. There's this other address file here called New Geocoding Address.csv. Some CDFIs are going to use that. and some of them aren't going to have to because their transactions aren't going to require them to need to use it. But you may end up using both of these. If you use the geocoding one, you should kind of think about that as part of an interim step that you're using to kind of geocode your addresses before completing your final address file. The CDFI fund, at a high level, has you submit a lot of data fields about your transactions via, one report, these kind of TLR project report or the consumer loan report, and then we separate out the address info and we ask for the address info separately. So that's why you have, both an address step and a non-address step. But again, you may also have this interim geocoding step, and so I'm just going to talk about why you might need that and what types of transactions might require you to kind of do this interim address step as you go about submitting your data. So again, you may not need to do this step, but for some of our transaction types, the CDFI fund ends up collecting really specific address information. We either collect address or we collect XY coordinates. For some other transaction types, we're not actually collecting really specific information. We're collecting only FIPS codes. And so there's two types of cases where we're going to collect FIPS codes, which are census tract identifiers, instead of the really specific addresses or XY coordinates. See if I can click. Okay, so the one of those types of cases is when you have a TLR transaction where the investee type is an individual. So that could be a mortgage to an individual. In that case, we're going to ask you to, instead of providing the full address, we're going to collect the FIPS code in that final address form. Another case is for your CLR transaction. So if you're a regulated entity that is submitting a CLR, that form only accepts FIPS codes. It doesn't accept addresses for your consumer loans, again, if you're a regulated entity. So that form inherently is sort of asking you only for FIPS codes. So to get those FIPS codes, you're going to have to use a geocoding service. You could use ours, and some people use external geocoding services. But that's sort of, you want to think about that geocoding address template as an interim step. If you have any of these loan types, if you have CLR transactions as a regulated entity, or if you have TLR transactions with investee types equal to individual, you're going to need to do some sort of interim geocoding step where you send the addresses and the coordinates to a system, and the system's going to return a FIPS code. That way, when you go to submit your final address file, you're going to put in the FIPS codes where you're required to put in the FIPS codes, and you're going to put in addresses in other cases. And then I just kind of quickly wanted to talk about what this means for the overall process of how you approach these different submissions. So when you think about submitting your TLR report, you have a couple of different choices. First, you need to decide, okay, does my organization need to submit a CLR, a TLR, or both? Again, that's going to depend on if you're regulated or unregulated. It's going to depend on the type of transactions you have if you're regulated. Then you're going to choose what method of data submission you're going to use. So our documentation will explain that you can choose between a manual upload process, which is like entering data into a form where you do one transaction at a time for TLR, or you could do a bulk upload where you're submitting us a CSV file that has all of your transactions in it. It's up to you which method you choose, but if you have a lot of loans, it's going to get pretty tedious to keep clicking through, and so you should probably switch over and make the jump into the bulk upload if it's taking a lot of time to do a manual upload. Our instructions are going to provide guidance for both methods, but at a high level, I think it's really important to understand, okay, what does the full process contain, and how do I know when I'm finished? So if you are submitting a CLR, you're a regulated entity that makes consumer loans, and you have to put in a CLR report. So, step one is that report's going to have FIPS codes instead of addresses. So you've got to get those FIPS codes. So you're going to do a geocoding process to get the FIPS codes associated with your transactions. You're then going to make sure that your data is aggregated up to the FIPS code level, because that's how that report works. You're going to end up submitting your completed CLR file if you're doing the bulk upload process. And then you may get notified that there are some errors that you need to troubleshoot during that process. And once your errors are cleaned up, you're going to be able to certify your CLR records. At that point, your CLR sort of components of this transaction level reporting would be completed. So then you might move on to the TLR if you have one, or if you are unregulated, you would ignore that whole CLR process and you would just start with the TLR. TLR process is similar. You're going to submit the sort of like first half of the data, right, which is the non-address level data for all of your transactions. That's going to be at the transaction level. You're then going to say, okay, do I have any particular loans or transactions where there are loans to individuals? And if so, I know that I need to get a FIPS code for those transactions because I'm not going to be submitting the full address in the final file. So I'm going to use that interim geocoding file to submit my addresses, receive a FIPS code, and then I've got that ready to put into my address report. You would then submit your TLR address template or your manual records, doing it manually. And that, on the back end, that's going to kind of link back to the other transactions you submitted using the originator transaction ID. And then you'd certify those TLR records. Once the records are certified, in theory, you should notice that your reporting schedule reflects that your TLR submission is complete. There's going to be some reminders we're going to talk about at the end for special cases, but that's the overall sort of TLR process at a high level. After you've certified your records, after your reporting schedule is showing that this component of your reporting requirements is complete, you might still get contacted by Yang or by myself. Yang and I do data checks on your submissions. Sometimes we might notice that there are duplicate transactions that were submitted, or that some data values, while they may not have triggered an error, they might look like outlier values, so we might reach out and clarify. In those cases, your report is going to still be showing as completed, but we might have to make some changes internally if we find that you entered some values in error. So you may get some correspondence from Yang or myself after you have certified your CLR and TLR. There are a couple of cases where your certification of your records might not go through on your own without help from our IT help desk. So one of those cases is where if you're a regulated entity that doesn't have both CLR data and TLR data to report. So maybe you're a regulated entity that only makes consumer loans, or you're a regulated entity that only makes non-consumer loans. Our system, tries its best to help you not make errors and not accidentally omit things, but the outcome of that in this case is going to be that you're not going to be able to certify your records without submitting a service request. So if you're in that boat, you're a regulated entity that, say, only has consumer loans, you're going to have to just put in a quick service request that says, hi, I only have consumer loans to report. Can you please help me certify my records? And we'll get that routed to the right team. There's also a case where if you're a depository institution holding company awardee, and you're carrying out your award via an affiliate, you're going to want to submit your TLR, CLR data under the affiliate. However, you're going to also have to submit a service request in this case to ask the help desk to certify your records and update the reporting schedule of the depository institution holding company to reflect that this has been submitted. And so that's because our system is organized at the organization level. So this is kind of a matter of making sure we've properly linked the TLR data where it's been submitted to the awardee and things like that. But again, quick service request, and we'll know who you are and why you're making that request. Okay. Another one is that if you're in a case where you have no new transactions, And by no new transactions, I mean you didn't originate any new transactions, regardless of funding source during the reporting period. Then you don't have TLR data to submit. So you just need to send us a quick service request that says I didn't originate any new transactions during the reporting period, and then we'll make sure that your reporting schedule is updated to reflect that, and it will show the TLR element as NA in that case. Otherwise, we might think that you're just late on your report. So if you know that you don't have any transactions to report, just go ahead and put that service request in now, and we'll get your reporting schedule updated. Another FAQ that we've seen come in a little bit is folks asking about a variable in the TLR report that's called the FA program type. That variable, you can see it in the data point guidance. It's sort of asking you to tag a transaction in the TLR report for different PG&Ms that are associated with our award programs. In that variable, we do not currently have a tag for something like small dollar loan program. So if you're submitting your transactions for the TLR and you're wondering, how do I tag a small dollar loan program award? There's no tag in there for that. You can go ahead and just use the FA tag for any loans that, don't have a specific, value that relates to one of the options in that variable. So answering FA for FA program type just kind of means that you aren't trying to tag it to any particular PG&M that's in the list of available options. But if you have any questions about that, definitely reach out and we'll happily clarify for you. All right. Another question we've seen a little bit is, we're approaching times when census tracts are going to be updated in terms of our programs and what we're using for different things. But for now, award recipients should continue to use the 2011 to 2015 census tracts as part of this reporting schedule until you're informed otherwise by us at the fund. So for TLR reporting, we'll have a new set of census tracts coming available in the future. But if you're on a 6/30 deadline for this year, you're going to be continuing to use the 2011-2015 census tracts file. So no change yet. Another thing that comes up sometimes in just like a technical issue with submitting your TLR data is that CDFIs can only bulk certify one time within a reporting period. So if you've done a bulk certification process with your TLR records and you realize you omitted a big chunk of loans or something, you omitted anything, and you're trying to send some new data in, you're not going to be able to certify an additional set of records. Our system, wants to make sure you're not accidentally submitting twice or things like that, and so the default is going to be that you only get one bulk certification for a reporting period. So if you need to make a change after you've submitted and certified, just go ahead, submit a service request, explain what's going on, and we can deal with the technical details and get you the ability to make a change. And then a final thing is just to double check that, after you've certified your records or after you think you've certified your records, your reporting schedule in AMIS should show that the TLR element for this reporting schedule is complete. It might say overdue complete if it's past the deadline, but it should be showing as a completed status if you've done this process correctly. So, it's a good process check to just go in, double check after you've submitted and certified your records that indeed the reporting schedule shows that this task is complete. And if it's not, just go ahead and put in a service request and we'll figure out what the issue might be. This is all I have for FAQs and reminders at this time. I'm going to open up the line in case Yang, Mia, or Scott, you have anything else you want to add? And otherwise, we can go ahead and open up for questions. All right, hearing none, just going to go ahead and let our operator give us instructions for the Q&A, and we're happy to answer any questions you have if we run out of time. Please submit via service request, but we're going to do our best to get anything you need at this time. Thanks.
We will now begin our question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question over the phone lines, please press *1 from your phone, unmute your line, and speak your name clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. To withdraw your question, press *2. Again, to ask a question over the phone lines, please press *, then 1. One moment as we wait for any questions. Our first question comes from Jennifer. Jennifer, your line is open.
Hello. I just wanted to confirm that for the in the guidance, if I'm supposed to be using FIPS or XY access points for BUS. And I also want to ask if there is a crosswalk to any new guidance points for organizations that have a end of fiscal year, which would be in March, because we are, I think, one of the first filers for the new fiscal year. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Yang, do you mind taking this one?
Sure. For the address, you only submit the FIP code if the investee type, which is loan, make loan to the individual, such as consumer loan, home mortgage, stuff like that. For other investee types, business or CDFI, you can either submit the full physical address, the number address, or X and Y coordinate. You don't need to do both. Regarding the second question, we will release and publish the new guidance on September 1st, 2023. If with any update, any new information, we also have a new section that just identify new updates so that it's easier for the user to follow up, because go through the guide and kind of a lot of stuff in there. So we will identify kind of just a new update and publish those in a separate document. They will be available September 1st, 2023, and that will apply to the new fiscal year, like you said, fiscal year 2023 data.
Am I still live to ask another question?
This is the operator. Your line is still open, Jennifer.
Every year that we have submitted, we've had errors, and every year we have to have a fix to our report that is done by the service request. We're never able to know what the problem is, and it's been I've been doing this for 3 years now. So my question is there any way to look at our past history and find out what is causing errors and how to prevent those? Because it's a very long process, and we never really know what ended up being fixed that we could maybe do better beforehand. Thank you.
If you have any question, anything, I think the service request is probably the best approach. Every year there's around, now the RRP, there's around 800 users to submit the data. I'm sure there's some issue with the system or anything like that. So like I said in the guidance, the process is time-consuming and complex. So follow the guidance, and if you have any question, submit a server request. And if the issue because of a technical issue or the issue on our side, you will not be penalized for that kind of thing. From compliance people will talk about that issue further, but if you have the service request in and the issue is on our side, technical issues like that, you'll be okay. You're not missing that deadline at all. But I think that's the approach, like the best approach, that submit the service request, be patient. There's around 800 people organizations submit the data each year, and for this deadline coming up, about 75% of 800. So it will be a lot. So for the system, for us to handle. Yeah, just send us a service request if you have any issues.
Yeah, and I would follow up and say too, just if if the error gets fixed and it's submitted, I would also, and you still don't really get an explanation as to what the issue is, feel free to send in another service request. After the reporting period, the volume of our correspondence will be lower, and so it might be a better time to have a more detailed conversation. So hopefully we can get that answered for you.
I've actually done that before, and I've never gotten a reply from what we were doing wrong or what was causing the error.
I would say keep trying, and we will do our best to get that answered.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I will pass that feedback to the service request team and make sure that if anybody does do that, that they will be, that we will be able to respond. Generally, if there was an issue and we needed to load it in ourselves, it might have been just an issue on our side, which means that there wasn't anything that you would have needed to have done. If there was any issues that happened on, that were data that was incorrect, the service request team should be going back to you and saying, this is what this is what was wrong, or this is, what we needed to improve. You need to improve, as far as data accuracy going through. We don't, unfortunately, keep historical issues, so there's no way for us to do that. But again, if you mentioned in the service request that you would like to understand what was different or what caused it, I'll again make sure and emphasize to the O&M team to make sure that we are transparent with that type of information.
I appreciate that. And I guess if we submit everything, we submit them through the Excel spreadsheets. And so if we submit them once, we bulk do them, and there's an error.
Right.
I think I just heard that we were never told before that we can't resubmit that spreadsheet again. The next time we submit it, we have to input every individual thing individually. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly? That we can't submit a whole spreadsheet of data twice because it's a bulk?
No, you can load the information in. It's just when you get to the certification piece, it won't allow you to certify a second time. But if
so that's when we can't certify twice. That's when we have to do a service request.
That's right.
Because that's where it fails, is at the certification process. Okay.
And if the CSV does load in, right, if it's a certification process, then it's something different. If it's the load of the issue, then we obviously would be telling you something that is wrong. The one thing I also wanted to add, you mentioned the request on the addresses. In a case where, as Yang mentioned, you can pass an address or an XY coordinate. If you do submit both, it will take the address as priority. And if there is any little discrepancy between the two, it will definitely use the address and then may overwrite the XY coordinate that you put in that was based on that address.
I just put the XY coordinates in just to try to be as accurate as possible. So I don't even put
and that would be fine. But for anyone on the call who would, usually it would be one or the other. If you do submit both, it will take the address as the priority.
Thank you, Scott.
Our next question comes from Latina. Latina, your line is open.
Hello. I'm with Village Capital Corporation, and I was told to sit in, take notes, but I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at or what I'm listening to. And will we have a copy of the presentation sent to us?
Hi, yes. So there's going to be a recording of this posted along with the slides. That said, I would say please look through the documentation because this is more of a high-level overview. There are step-by-step videos of the different steps in the documentation, and then as well as in our data point guidance are much more comprehensive overviews. But there will be, this recording will be posted, and the associated slides will be posted as well.
So it will be posted to the website that you showed in the beginning?
Yes, exactly. That same location.
All right.
Our next question comes from Sayun. Sayun, your line is open.
All right. Thank you for letting me ask the question. Sharon from NCIF. I wanted to just confirm, so my organization received the FA and the RRP. Do we submit a separate CDFI TLR for these two awards, or if we put in the information for one of them, it would apply to the other?
Yeah, great question. So you're going to submit one TLR, and it's going to be applied to both awards. So if you're a joint awardee or you got an award under our FA program and under our RRP program, you do not have to do this twice. It's just one TLR report process.
Okay. My other question
I just want to add on that. The TLR, it doesn't matter how many awards you have. You can have 2, 3, or some different award, but there's only one TLR per fiscal year. So whether you have the FARP or you have 2 FA or you have 3 FA, it doesn't matter. Only one TLR per fiscal year, one report per fiscal year.
Okay. Just one clarification, quick question, if I may, is the transactions which involve individuals. Could you kind of list those transactions? I heard consumer lending, but I just wanted to make sure that my organization doesn't have that.
Sure. I'm just going to go actually use the guidance to answer this question. So if you were to go to our guidance document,
Okay.
The variable is kind of about investee type. And so when you're looking at your transactions, I would look at them in regard to these definitions here. So investee type individual is what's going to trigger that FIPS code geocode need, and we're defining that as a loan to an individual. So a loan issued by CDFI to a borrower who is an individual versus a loan issued by CDFI to a borrower who is a business entity or to a CDFI. So that would be the distinction that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And you also, this example shows that there's some other validations in our system. So if you're curious, you can see how those work. But, you'll see that we also say, if you pick that your investee type is an individual, our validations sort of look to make sure that your loan purpose that you've tagged it as within our system makes sense. So just double check those validations. Our loan purpose variable is another variable, but you'll see that mentioned in the documentation here.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question comes from Pearl. Pearl, your line is open.
Hi, thank you so much for the webinar. I just had 2 questions. We get a loan from partly from an RRP and partly from our regular loan fund. What would I put in as the FA program type?
Great, thanks. I'm also just going to pull up this in the guidance as we talk about this. So when you go to your FA program type, you have the following options. So you choose one of our predefined values below, and you're basically deciding is this transaction going to be used to satisfy the RRP PG&Ms? And if so, you would tag it as RRP. And if it wasn't going to be used to satisfy those PG&Ms and it wasn't going to be used to satisfy the PG&Ms of any of the FA supplementals, then you would tag it as FA under that particular variable. Mia, I don't know if you have any guidance on sort of a portion of a transaction being assigned to a PG&M that you want to share.
No, we don't have any guidance on that. I think to just tag it, if it, like you said, if it doesn't fit under any of those categories, just as FA, none of the above.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, if you can elaborate a bit on the jobs created, if it's just based on a client's estimation, is that considered jobs to be created, or does it have to actually be, more researched?
Yang, do you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yes. If you look at the guidance, we asked for projection at the time of loan origination. So the sale report from your client, that would be sufficient. And if you there's a data column called the job sources. If you can click on that and you report enter something like client reported, then that would be more useful. But it would be sufficient. You don't have to do any more research on it. Yeah.
Okay. And what would be the job source?
Is in the other. Aaron, can you scroll down to the job section from the guidance? Keep going down. Yeah, job. Okay. Keep going down. So that. Right there, right? The source of job estimate. So for your case, you can say others, and on the second one, you can enter sale report by client. That one.
Okay, so I would do other and then by client.
Yeah. And then you enter the text, say sale report by client on the next data column. Yeah.
Okay, and so that would be what? Can you just elaborate? What's the new financing?
The new financing is more like actual job data. When you make a loan and it's not an estimate, it's kind of at the time and your client report that we hire and we retain this many jobs at this moment, our businesses. That's a new finance. The rest of them are estimate projection based on different model. And if you think that this client say they report but they're not sure about it, they project it, something like that, then you can use other and enter kind of sale report by client. That's the way for not reliable data. The new finance is like actual job at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your help. I appreciate it.
Our next question comes from Harlecito. Harlecito, your line is open. Harlecito, your line is open.
Yes. The question is whether there will be a new CSV export template, or we still use the old one, the August 2020.
Yeah, so the current one available is it's gonna be the same. So it's gonna be that one that says 2020. You won't see a more updated one to choose from. Scott, can you confirm that?
Yes. Along with what Yang mentioned, with some changes in September, you may see some modifications at that point in time, obviously with any new information. But currently, for now, you would use the existing template that's out there right now.
Thanks very much.
Our next question comes from Amor. Amor, your line is open.
Hi there. Usually in the past, I've done this report maybe 4 times now. I wanted to know, once completed, we do get kind of a notice that says submitted, but I'm never quite sure if it's actually submitted or not. So there's been times where I've waited 7 days where I thought I submitted it, but I didn't get like an email confirmation, or I didn't get a success, this is completed, yay. So I was wondering if you all maybe had an avenue to inform the applicant that the form is submitted and no further actions needed.
I would suggest after you've submitted it, if you receive that confirmation, that you go back into AMIS and check your reporting schedule. Your reporting schedule will show that it has been submitted in AMIS under the award page. So I would suggest, if you don't hear anything back and you want to be certain that it's been submitted, to go into AMIS and check your award schedule to make sure that it is marked in AMIS as submitted.
Yes, I would add something on Mia comments. When you submit the data, you will not receive any confirmation from us about whether the data came in or not. So as a prudent practices, you need to check you can log in and click on the CDFI tab and see it there. And also, like Mia mentioned, you need to check your reporting schedule. If the report come in properly, correctly, you will see the status for that award is submitted. So you need to check that. But you will not receive, at the current moment, you will not receive any email, anything sent to you and confirm that you successfully submitted data. You need to check your report schedule.
Yeah, and that's also important too, because if there are occasions when it's not marked in AMIS as being submitted, because it'll actually give you the date received and the time that it was submitted. But if it's not marked in AMIS as submitted, you could potentially receive AMIS notice that the report is overdue when it was actually submitted. So it's very important to go into AMIS and check your reporting schedule to make sure that it is marked as submitted.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Marianne. Marianne, your line is open.
Thank you for taking my call. I had 2 questions. One is just, again, if you could just confirm, my understanding is that if an organization is a capital magnet fund awardee, none of those transactions are to be in the TLR report. And then my second question is, I think one of the first callers referenced this, some of the problems with dealing with the transaction level report filing. Last year, downloaded the CSV file and completed it, and then was not able to upload it at all after multiple attempts, and then it required that the data be manually entered to complete our reporting requirement. Can you provide some guidance on just how, the necessary steps to ensure that the CSV file will be uploaded, will be accepted from the AMIS site?
Yang, do you want to take? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I don't. They went and they loaded the information themselves for the service request team. Usually when that does happen, There's one particular issue that we are aware of, and sometimes it is the volume. And with the volume that comes up, usually if the CSV file is greater than a meg, we will have problems, and usually we will separate it out. The O&M team generally will see this as, they kind of load it up themselves as a courtesy. If there's any issues or if you've had any problems, with the load and we've identified any issues with that. So, and generally they would tell you what the issue was, or as I mentioned before, if there was any issues with the CSV file itself, to make any appropriate adjustments and load the information.
Yeah, I couldn't. I attempted several times to upload it, and it just would not accept it. And so then on our end, my organization, I had to go in and then manually enter every one of those transactions then, because I could not get the CSV file to be accepted.
Yes.
So I downloaded it from the AMIS site and used that as the template. And then when I went to upload it, the system would not accept it. And then required then a manual entry of every one of those transactions. So I'm just trying to see if there's any guidance that can be given to, prevent that from happening. Because if you put the effort in to do all the work on the CSV file and then can't get it uploaded, then you're back to square one, basically.
Right. The first thing I would do is, if anyone does have a CSV file, please don't go in and manually enter every record in there. Please submit a request, submit a service request, and someone there will help you get that CSV uploaded so that you don't have to load in every one of them.
Okay.
At that point in time, they would do an investigation of the CSV file itself to see what might have been an issue or not an issue. It could have been something as simple as, there were some special characters that were in there that shouldn't have been, that generally will cause a problem if you get an invalid file format. Sometimes there might have been a field missing or misrepresented so that it didn't identify a specific field correctly. CSV files are definitely very sensitive. As you're working with Excels, just be very cautious, of making sure that leading zeros on a zip code or anything along those lines when you're saving are preserved. Those are a lot of the big ones that our service request team generally does see. But they will help anybody get their CSV loaded so that, as users of the system, you don't have to go in there manually and do it.
Okay, thank you. And then just on the Capital Magnet Fund, can you just confirm that?
Yeah. Before confirm that, I just want to emphasize to all the users, if you have more than 10 transactions to report, I would recommend do not manually enter the data. It would be a lot of work. Use a CSV and ask Scott talk about it. If you have any issues, submit a request, and you may even send in your Excel file, the CSV file, and the help desk will take a look at it, and then we'll figure out why it didn't work. So do not manually enter the data if you have more than 10 transactions. Regarding your first question, yes, I can confirm for the capital management fund transaction, do not include them in the TLR, exclude them, because you will report them in a separate report to the capital management fund program. So for TLR, exclude the capital management fund transactions.
Okay, thank you.
As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question over the phone lines, please press *1 from your phone, unmute your line, and speak your name clearly when prompted. Our next question comes from Jennifer. Jennifer, your line is open.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the multiple questions here, but I just wanted to confirm, I think one of the problems we had with our CSV is that our loan unique number or unique number for each item, we have a dash in ours, and I think that dash created a problem. Is that correct, that was one of the problems that would be caused by a rejected CSV?
It could be. I can't say for sure in every example. There could be some cases where generally what will happen when you're loading information in, and again, if looking at the guidance, usually if you get something along the lines of an invalid file format, it's not recognizing all of the particular fields, and it's a very unfortunately CSVs can be somewhat unforgiving, which is why we offer support to kind of help you get through that. A lot of times when you are loading up, it should give you each row and tell you if there's any issues with any row. So if you've gotten to the point of moving beyond the invalid file format and you see those error messages, you can definitely download the submission preview and see what all the issues are on all of the different pieces. A dash on the CLR, I think you're referring to, it could be a possibility, but it should give you a message if that was the case. And again, if there, I can't say 100%, but again, if you do have something like that, definitely submit a service request and they'll make sure they get some clarification on it. Generally, like things like dashes or underscores are not, across the board an issue, but there might be some isolated incidents that we can help you work through.
Just to clarify that the guidance is not going to come out until 9/1, and because of our fiscal year end, we have to submit our report. Our report has to be submitted and certified and accepted by 9/30. So it's kind of difficult for us. It would be really nice if those guidances could come out any earlier.
No, that's a time frame that we already have in the past. I understand that you have only 1 month to prepare for the data. If you need more time to do it, you can always request extension individually. I'm sure the compliance office will take a look and give you extension, 1 month extension. So if you think you cannot accommodate within 1 month, change the system, anything like that, just submit a request, ask for extension, deadline extension. I don't think we deny that at all. So you're not frustrated about that at all. But the guidance will come out September 1st.
And to clarify that the new CSV files will come out on September 1st as well?
Yes, everything will come out at the same time. That's what we try to do. We try to avoid confusion. Anything, the guidance, the system, the template, everything will come out at the same time.
Okay, thank you very much.
One more thing for the originator transaction ID. This for all the users. There's kind of some difficulty with that. Just the good practices. Make sure don't include any sensitive information like Social Security, bank account, anything like that, and avoid any special characters like space, anything like that, dollar sign, even underscore dash. You don't need that. Just put the number and the letter, alphanumeric character. That would help you get through the system, and also make sure they are unique, not just unique for the current report, but unique for the previous report, because it will check, the system will check that loan ID, originator transaction ID, against the previous report from the previous year. So make sure they're unique. So you may add like for this year, 2022, you add 2022, so it has to be unique, right? So you keep doing that. Next year, 2023, something like that too, the ID. That will guarantee that will be unique. Otherwise, the system will check if you have to duplicate with not just the current report, but the previous year too.
Our next question comes from Sarah. Sarah, your line is open.
Hi. We make small business loans and also loans to affordable housing developers. For the housing loans, in a case where, say, we made $1 million loan to a developer as part of their financing to build a $20 million, apartment building or something, do we just enter that $1 million loan once with the address 123 Main Street of the building, or do we somehow have to list it 40 times, 123 Main Street, Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, etc.?
No, just one, just location, one address, because what we're interested in whether that project fall within the kind of, eligible census tract, and census tract kind of big. So you don't need to put the Unit 1, Unit 2. if they fall, if a different address, then of course you have to enter, because it might go to a different census tract, but it's just the same address, but you have unit 1, unit 2. You just need to put one transaction. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And then second question, in the field where you're putting RRP FA or HHFI FA or just FA, I've always been a little confused why FA is just either means FA or is just a placeholder for meaning nothing. So I'm thinking, if our organization has an RRP award and also 2 active FA awards in the fiscal year.
Yes, you're not the one you are confused about it. We will update that for the next guidance. So the FA means that none above. So if you have anything you tag for the other, like HFFI or anything like that, and the rest of them would go to FA. It doesn't mean that you have to have an FA award or associate FA. It's just something none above, because you are required to report all transactions, right, all origination. So some of them you can tag with other PG names like HFFI or disability or position publicity PPC, and some of them you have nothing to tag to, and that would fall into FA. It's more like none above, yeah. Or
okay, so it's not.
Yeah, we will update the guidance to make sure it avoid confusion for future. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, the tag, it's not saying, because like if you have 2 active FAs, which you can't double count the same loan towards the goals of both awards, so it always made me a little nervous just putting FA for everything. But
yeah, just put everything in FA, if not the other. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the historical reasons are also because the FA program had PG&Ms associated with overall lending activity and stuff like that. So it's sort of a bit of a legacy labeling system here. So you're not alone in your confusion, but putting it as FA for now is okay.
Our next question comes from Judy. Judy, your line is open.
Oh, thank you so much. My question has to do with the new guidance coming out on September 1st. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th. So does that mean that we are to use the new guidance when we submit our report that would be due December 31st, given that we're on a June 30th fiscal year end? Or would we use the current guidance, and then with the new guidance before our new fiscal year, 2023-2024?
The current template, CSV and guidance, only effective until the end of this month, June 30th, which is 2020 data. So for your case, which is 2023 data, so you have to use the new template, follow the new guidance, will be released on September 1st.
Okay, so we try to get our reports done early if we can. So really we should wait until after September 1st to submit data for our 2022-2023 fiscal year end.
That's correct. You have to wait for after September 1st when we release the new template, new guidance, things like that. And I said before, if you think that it's not enough time for you, which is what, September 1st to 3 months. If within 3 months you think you don't have enough time to do it, then you can always submit a request asking for the deadline extension. And make sure you do it before the deadline, of course. But you can always do that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Our next question comes from Eaton. Eaton, your line is open.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I had a question about loans that are refinanced. On the webinar last year, someone asked about this, and the answer that we were given was that if we increase, say, the amount of a loan, we should use the original loan ID and just report the amount of the increase. but it sounds like that might give us an error message since it's a duplicate loan ID number. So what do you recommend? And I guess also if we refinanced and didn't change the amount but changed the rate, would that be something that we should be reporting? And if so, how?
Okay. So we asked for new origination, right? Involve new source of money, stuff like that. So if you refinance, it's the same amount of money, nothing changed, nothing. You don't report them. Okay, that's it. But like your case, you increase the amount of money, so you just report the increase, and treat that as a new transaction with a new ID. Don't use the old one. Okay.
Okay.
And then there's a column say refinance, other that you can put a refinance. That I think you can do that, but treat it as a new transaction with the amount increase. The difference. That's a new transaction. It's not a whole one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Jennifer. Jennifer, your line is open.
The previous caller just answered my exact question, so thank you to the previous caller.
Our next question comes from Latina. Latina, your line is open.
Yes. Will the slideshow be on the website now or after it's over?
Thanks for your question. This is going to be posted after the call concludes. So it's not currently on the website right now, but there are other materials that are currently on the website.
So I'll be able to find it on the CDFI fund.gov?
Yes. Yep. And let me just go ahead and show you again where to find all this content. So I'm just going to share. If I go to CDFIfund.gov and I go ahead all the way down to the bottom of the homepage, and I click on Compliance and Performance Reporting Resources, it will be posted alongside these other guidance documents, which are also all current and welcome to be perused. So it will be added here. And if you can't find it, feel free to put in a service request and we'll get you to the right place.
Thank you.
I'm showing no additional questions in the queue at this time.
Thanks, Jordan, for all your help. Just wait another minute. But if there are no further questions, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We know the TLR report is not everyone's favorite, so we appreciate you sticking with us. And again, if you think of something after this call that you want to ask, please put in a service request, and one of us will get you an answer that you need. Jordan, do we have any more questions coming in?
I'm showing no questions in the queue.
Great, thanks. Mia, Yang, Scott, unless you have anything else you'd like to add, I think we're okay to conclude today. Again, we'll post the slides as well as the audio to this report or to this overview on our website in the same location as our other reporting materials. Again, if you can't find anything that you need, if it's not in a format that is accessible to you, please let us know, and we'll do our best to get you what you need to complete these reports. Again, if you get confused, if you run into a technical issue, feel free to put in, a request for an extension, more time, just explain the issue that you're encountering. Our team will evaluate that request, but the earlier you get in any requests like that, the better, and the earlier you start on this report, the better. So thanks again for everyone for tuning in, and please send a service request if you're getting stuck on this. Thanks, and with that, Jordan, happy to conclude the call today.
Thank you. Thank you for your participation in today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.